There are few classic franchises that I can think of that are as badass as Castlevania. From the spooky visuals, intense challenge, memorable characters, and absolute bangers for soundtracks again and again and again and again. And like many acclaimed franchises, it all started with one humble little title, Castlevania. Unfortunately, I couldn't experience this game during its inception, as my own inception wouldn't happen till much later. But also, like many who weren't forged in the fires of old school retro game challenge, I was a bit deterred to give this game a proper go-around. I played it, but never dedicated myself to finish it. I enjoyed what I played, but not enough to see it to the end. Frankly, this unfortunately was the same for me with many classic NES games that offered a stiff challenge. This was during a time where I didn't submit much interest in many challenging retro games from believing the sequels would offer an equivalent and superior experience. Eventually, I would feel inspired to finally complete the game for myself, but not without the requisite modern handholding. In this case, good old save states. Embarrassingly, my first real playthrough of the game would be done through the NES Classic Edition. Such an odd little device looking back on it now. Decently priced until scalpers mangled the shit out of it, though thankfully that's gone down to more reasonable offers. Cord lengths so short that extension cables are practically necessary, and a respectable library of games for those who want to sample the best the NES has to offer. Ultimately, this was the best way for me to play the game at the time, as the Wii's Virtual Console didn't have save states for a pathetic scrote like me, and the less said about the Wii U's Virtual Console, the better. Even today, the NES Classic is a fine little device for casual retro enthusiasts, and was perfectly suitable to pop my Castlevania wall roast. Unsurprisingly, the experience wasn't anything to write home about. I did finish the game quite comfortably with save states with menial frustration. Such a crux can reduce any challenge to monotonous busywork until the game is finished. Of course, I'm not into save scumming and only planted a save state wherever felt the most sensible for a basic checkpoint. By the time I was finished with the game, I thought it was a decent enough time, and I was happy to at least see the game through as I moved on to the rest of the franchise. However, there was a considerable lack of satisfaction that one might often hear about from other reviews of this game. Years would pass without touching the game again, as it was under the belt and I felt there wasn't a reason to sink any more time into it. That was until one particular night.
A cursed night, if you will. A night where I had absolutely
nothing to do. Y'all ever have one of those days? You have nothing but time on your hands, and yet despite being surrounded by entertainment, you can't bring yourself to enjoy anything? It's miserable. Well, that night I said fuck it and decided to play some Castlevania. Not off of some wimp-ass emulator, I had the real thing. Popped that fucker right in and... well, alright. That's a good-ass game. Now, I do want to preface that there will be a considerable amount of frustration that's involved when playing through this game. It's all the usual suspects, from the stiff controls, enemy patterns that are hard to prepare for, and cruel punishments from even the smallest of mistakes. Now, personally, I'm not one to criticize a game just because it has stiffer than usual controls. I defend tank controls in other games because I don't see them as handicaps and accept them as part of the challenge. Even the infamous knockback isn't that bad, as long as you're mindful of it to avoid lethal hits that'll send you into a pit. The worst this gets is stage 10, since you're basically defenseless on the moving platforms. You can't jump to avoid enemies when on a platform, and one misplaced attack will send you to an instant death. All the candles they place is such a tease, like the game knows you can't get them because you're certainly going to kill yourself doing so. For the most part, I feel most obstacles in this game can be approached comfortably with nothing more than a little patience and mindful actions. The long corridor in stage 11, for example, can be absolute hell if you let just one fleaman hit the ground. Luckily, it's actually pretty easy to time whip attacks to take them out before they can cause you any trouble. The wall dragons right afterwards used to give me so much crap, but all it takes is minding distance and all of a sudden they're not so bad. That's how I normally describe the challenge of this game. If you're even just a little bit reckless, then yeah, you're going to be in for a bad time. But practice patience and plan your actions more carefully and you'll be clearing this game in no time. Getting the most out of your secondary arsenal is also very important. You'd actually be surprised just how far the whip alone can carry you, and your first couple of candle drops are almost always whip upgrades. But you are encouraged to use your secondary items as much as possible when appropriate. Of course, most players would say the holy water is the best item in the game, and it is, but that's not to discount the other items as well. The axe packs quite a punch when landing a hit, The dagger is surprisingly quick even without an extra shot. The boomerang may be weak, but is prone to landing multiple shots, and the stopwatch really speaks for itself. The utility of each of these items is greatly enhanced when you get a double or triple shot, but you're only getting those by actually using the items, so use them as much as you can. The game rewards you for doing so. There are a few select spots that will have an extra shot, but those are very rare. The holy water is the best item in the game as it's basically all the other items combined into one. It arcs slightly so you can attack enemies above you with it. It stuns enemies upon contact, freezing them for some extra hits, and it lingers after you throw, so even if you miss, enemies can still walk into it. It's actually kind of hilarious how much the challenge in this game is diminished from simply having a triple shot holy water. Even if the stages give you a hard time, the bosses are a complete joke with this item setup. So barring a few select moments, I couldn't really bring myself to call this game extremely challenging. The levels aren't especially long, and checkpoints are usually pretty generous, and even when restarting from a game over, you have infinite continues, and it's not long to bring yourself back up with good items and hearts. That is, until you get to stage 13. Man, fuck this stage, it has it all. It friggin' starts with fleamen who will charge at you. You can't even take a moment to breathe when you begin this stage. And then you get to the knights, which are the worst enemies in the game. The axes they throw take a quarter of your health, and it's hard to close the distance as they keep backing away from you. Most of the stage isn't too bad as long as you know where the wall roast locations are. I do find this part excessively cheap since it's where you restart when you die, and the skull cannon will almost always land a hit before you can progress. Of course, after this screen is the corridor before death. Everyone who's played this game has PTSD from this part, and why wouldn't they? This part is a fucking nightmare. Like, gee, let's take the two worst enemies in the game and slap them in a room right before the hardest boss. Great. If you're extremely lucky, you might be able to power through this part with the right equipment, but getting through without taking a hit at least once is almost impossible. Having the boomerang, which is the only item you have after you respawn, is useless since it ricochets off the knights. Having the stopwatch helps a lot, but it's completely useless against death. Really, the only chance you have is having at least a double shot holy water. If you die at any point here, you might as well restart the stage from scratch. You can try in vain, but there's simply no recovery. You need to restart the stage to get another holy water, which is your only viable chance against death. Even then, you might not be so lucky. Come on, almost there, come on, yes! No! Suffice to say, this is the worst part of the game, or at least the most challenging. If there was any part that would warrant the use of save states, it's this part, but it is a lesson in saving appropriately. Without holy water, replaying this corridor and death again and again and again is the kind of play experience that kills any enjoyment and will only add to the frustration. Going back sucks, but ultimately it is an opportunity to be better equipped next time. The level still isn't that long, so as long as you're tenacious enough, you'll complete the stage in no time. But it is the ultimate test to handle this game's old school challenge. The final stage doesn't even feel like an actual level you play through, it's more like a mad dash to the end. As if the previous stage left you so scarred, you're just desperate to finish the game by this point. There's no other way to play this level in my opinion, because the giant bats aren't worth it, and the fucking fleamen birds are best left ignored. Once you get to Dracula's stairway, it's fine, because you'll respawn here even after a game over. That doesn't mean the rest is easy, because Dracula doesn't fuck around. If this checkpoint wasn't here, I'd almost render this game unbeatable, because fuck, man. Now, admittedly, I might have unintentionally handicapped myself because I forgot you can respawn the candles and get a double triple shot before the fight, but whatever, it's more satisfying to beat him without it, right? Upon slaying Dracula once again, watching the horrendously cheesy credits, it began to dawn on me. I just beat Castlevania. Legit. No save states, no additional outside assistance, just me in the game. And approximately 2 hours of my time, because getting real, this game was never that long. Literally half of that time was the final 2 stages, which does require a lot of temperament. And I'll admit, after the 4th game over from death, I had to take a small break before continuing. But with that said, the satisfaction from completing it was considerable, compared to my initial playthrough. While I still vouch that there's nothing wrong with save states, and I still encourage them if you feel so inclined, saving at a specific point and retrying from there may sound fine enough, but you'll find trying to brute force a game that way only leads to a lesser experience. I recall my initial playthrough, and reloading what seemed like a comfortable save only led to me making the same mistakes again and again, relying on only luck to get me through the game. While it may seem more comfortable, it most definitely isn't as satisfying. Ultimately, it was beating this game without such assistance that made me rethink the use of save states entirely. While playing this game without them undoubtedly added an additional level of frustration, oddly, my overall enjoyment of this game was elevated. Now, approaching any game with a steep level of challenge can still be daunting, especially for an old school game like this, and luckily there are less outward alternatives. If you play the later Famicom release, thankfully accessible via the Anniversary Collection, it includes an easier difficulty for those who may be jumping into the series and want to start with the first game but not get their balls chewed as much. To get it out of the way now, yeah, holy shit, this is way easier. Like, the challenge actually comes from trying to get a game over when playing the game now. To start, you begin with way more lives and have a bunch of hearts from the get-go. You also take way less damage, and bosses receive double damage. There's no knockback anymore, and that alone would have been enough, frankly. But also, you get to keep your sub-weapons after dying, and you don't lose a double or triple shot when picking up a new item or dying. So they basically become permanent upgrades until a game over, I guess, but again, good luck getting that to happen. Now, the game is still plenty enjoyable this way, but there's no doubt that it really doesn't represent the level of challenge the series is known for. Maybe it would be good for practice to get an overall feel for this game, but I think a normal playthrough would be fine for that already. It's nice to have an easier difficulty, but this one is perhaps too easy. Luckily, there's a more balanced alternative. Sodium hydroxide created a ROM hack for the original Castlevania to drastically improve the controls of the game. Later Castlevania games would include more fluid controls, so I think it's plenty sensible to implement them with this original title. This hack is compatible with other ROM hacks, but I'm just looking at the base game here. So to start, you now have full mid-air control. You still get knocked back from taking a hit, but you can steer yourself a bit more, potentially saving you from certain death, but don't count on it too much. This alone feels amazing, and it doesn't stop there. You can perform short hops, which is really awesome for some of those janky item drops and weird platforms. A subtle change is Simon will no longer drop like a 5-ton rock when walking off a ledge, but literally the best change actually is being able to jump on and off stairs. The stairs are a notorious Castlevania enemy, and this one simple change makes them far more comfortable. You have total control now, and it's amazing how much it makes you rethink the level design. Many enemies and obstacles don't feel anywhere near as cheap from this one simple control change. You can optimize the ROM hack to add or omit whatever control tweaks you like, but I like to either go big or go home. It does go without saying that, yeah, this does make the game substantially easier, but not exactly in the same way as the Famicom Easy mode. That was essentially just some stat tweaks, which almost comes off as cheap, whereas better controls simply make the game challenge feel less cheap. However, that does mean every death now solely rests on the player and cannot be appointed to the game anymore. Every mistake now is entirely your fault. If you still have a hard time with this game even after the improved controls, then I think at this point you'll just have to accept that you suck at the game. But there is a relief in knowing that you don't suck at the game, and the only true way to prove that is taking on the challenge exactly the way it was meant to. Been a while since I've done one of these. Truth be told, there's several other games I'd love to add to this not quite yet a series, but that'll probably not be for a while. I'd like to take a moment to thank those who clicked on this one. Pretty excited to get to work on the next one, so fingers crossed it won't be far in the future. Until then, I hope you all have a beautiful season. That concludes my trivial dialogue today. I'll close my final say with a thank you for watching.